Alright, and we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel, We Love Comics. This is a surprise little video that I actually got inspired by a couple of comments that I was responding to. And the first thing I want to say is, regarding the video I did today, considering it's almost an hour long, I actually was surprised of how many people actually listened to that whole video. So thank you for that. It really means a lot, and there was a lot of positive messages, and I had like 54 comments already, and I will respond to every one of them, so be patient. But after reading a couple of comments, I had to make this video, and I think it's really going to help people see things in a different perspective. Now, normally, and hello to everybody that's coming in: Gorilla Grodd, Mr. Nobody, Greek Empire 13, John Reynolds, Vintage Bologna, or Bologna, Sith Lord, Chirag Ray Gambler. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but this type of video I'm about to do, normally I would do on my other channel, because this is more of a philosophical one, but people seem to like that. But this will help you, I promise you that, with not only comic collecting, but your life in general. And because the last video had some of that aspect, I was actually a little concerned because, you know, like I said, I have a few haters, but I realized they just hate everything I do. They don't even listen, so I don't even worry about it. But I was actually concerned that most people would be like, wait a minute, this is a comic book channel. Why are you talking about philosophical stuff? And I got such a good response with it, and some surprisingly good responses, that I feel that this video that I'm about to do for you really is going to help people. And one of the things I talked about, and I want to get into a little bit deeper, and this, like I said, will help your comic collecting, is the fact of learning from your mistakes. Now, everybody makes them. There is a reason why things happen the way they do, and if you listen to this and follow this, I promise you things will be clearer to you, easier for you, and you won't harp on things like some do, because you'll notice there are some people in your life that will continually be angry forever. It's because they choose not to change stuff. So this is what I want to talk about when it comes to mistakes. And one of the comments I read, and let me give the shout out, because this is the one that inspired me, and I actually stopped replying to comments to make this video. And I'm going to read this. It was from Holy Man 40, and they put the numbers to show that they watched the whole video. And they write as follows: amazing video, bro, and thank you for that. Says, I'm glad I found your channel. It has helped me a lot in improving my collection. I started getting into comic collecting in mid-2016, and I made some mistakes along the way when it comes to buying comics. But by watching your videos and learning from my mistakes, I feel more confident now in how I invest in my collection. So ultimately, I want to say thank you, Chris. So, Holy Man 40, that's great to hear. I get so many comments from people left and right saying that I've inspired them to get back into comics or see it in a different way. Their collections have improved. And even when I give some life advice, they all appreciate it. And that, to me, is shocking, considering how my original go-around on this channel in the beginning, when I shut it down, the responses, the negative responses I was getting from people. But I want to focus on the positive. So we're going to talk about making mistakes, and we're going to factor it in to comic collecting, but this could be applied to any part of your life. If you listen to it and what I like to call understand, not understand, because you got to go from within. So, the biggest thing about mistakes that we're taught in life is that they are negative, they are bad, they are things that we should regret or get angry about. And that is the exact opposite of what the reality is of what mistakes are. I'll give you an example. I'm sure we've all been told since we were children, you know, while your mother or father was cooking some kind of food, don't touch the stove because you will burn yourself. Now, in life, some people will listen to advice and learn from it. Others have to find out the hard way. How many people have actually touched a burning stove and burned their hand? Now, in life, that's considered a mistake. And you can feel pain. You can even cause yourself damage. But through that painful experience, if you pay attention to it, you will learn a lesson. And that lesson makes your life improved. Because if you spent your whole life touching stoves, you're going to injure yourself to the point where you may no longer have use of your hand. So even though that one situation may have caused you temporary pain, or even at the very least inconvenience, you learn never to do it again. So if you pay attention to a mistake, you can see it as a learning tool, which means if you really think about it on a deeper level, was it really bad? Now, this is a video you might have to watch a couple of times to kind of understand that, especially if this is new stuff to you, because people have been basically programmed all of their lives to think negatively about any kind of mistake. Because you're always thinking about when you do something bad, what is the first thing you do? You insult yourself. You say, oh, what an idiot I was, or how stupid was that? And then after a while, you keep replaying that situation or whatever it is in your mind repeatedly. And it continues to make you angry even though it's something that has already happened. So you keep reliving that moment instead of moving past it. Now, here's the best way to tell that this stuff really is the way I'm talking about. If you don't learn from a mistake, let's say it's a relationship where you date a specific type of person that is just bad for you. Maybe they're abusive physically or mentally, or they just don't treat you the way you think you deserve to be treated. But instead of saying, okay, I don't want that type of person anymore, I am going to see what parts of that person makes me sad or upset or angry or concerned or scared, whatever. And I'm going to avoid that type of person, no matter how wealthy they are or how good looking they are or how much everybody says that person may be good for me. Because what will happen is, maybe your friends do this, maybe you do this, that you'll notice that even if they go from one relationship to the next, it's a different body, same person. In other words, if somebody is mentally abusive and they break up with somebody and they don't learn and grow from that mistake, all of a sudden the next 20 people they date are just different people with the same abusive problem. And you keep attracting the very thing that you, in your head, say you don't want. But your head and your heart think differently. It's like school. I'll do an even simpler example. Let's say you're in 5th grade. What happens if you don't study, you don't do your homework, and you don't learn your lessons, and you fail the 5th grade? What happens? Well, you get left back. You have to repeat 5th grade, which means all the things that you refuse to learn for whatever reason, you now have to learn all over again. And that cycle will continue until situations happen. Either you decide it's time to actually learn the things that you need to learn, or you give up. Now, of the two scenarios, which one do you think is going to increase your chance of having a better life? Learning or giving up? And you notice there are people in life, whether it comes to anger issues, relationship issues, to anything in their life, where something bad has happened, where it's traumatizing. If you don't learn from it, it's going to be like failing any grade. You're going to continually have it happen until you learn from it. So the ironic part is, when something bad happens in your life, in other words, a mistake, you're so afraid of dealing with it that you ignore it or make yourself feel bad or get depressed and do everything that you can to avoid it. Maybe getting into drugs or alcohol. Maybe you become a violent or mean person. And you do everything in your power to say, I'm just going to ignore it. Because you're told all your life, ignore something, they'll go away. Well, ignore your teeth. They'll go away. That's not necessarily a good thing. So those people out there in the world that make a mistake and they say, I don't want to face it, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to deal with it, I just want to feel sad, angry, mad, get into drugs or whatever. You ever wonder why it keeps happening over and over again? And it gets worse each time until one day you finally say, I can't take this anymore, I'm finally going to solve that problem, when you could have done it right away. So like the example with the 5th grade, if you were to do all the homework, if you were to learn all the lessons, if you were to do everything to pass, well, you no longer have to see the 5th grade. You continue on to the next level. So when it comes to something like comic books, if you were one of the people that I told people to be not like, in other words, buying comics when everybody wants them and paying all the extra high prices, you can get very mad that you did that because, you know what? We're human. We all make mistakes. We've all done it. I guarantee you're not a comic collector if you haven't overpaid for a book. It happens. But if you don't learn from it and you continue to buy in that way, well, what's going to happen? Do you think you're going to be happy with your collection, or do you think you're going to be upset with your collection? Because you're basing it solely on profit alone. And that's why I was talking about, somebody else asked me a question about, what comics should I get graded? And my response was, and this is my advice to anybody, and you can apply this to anything in your life. When he asked me, or she, I don't know, Jim Coffee and Comics. Don't spill your coffee on your comics, though. But, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought, but that's all right. About grading comics. He was asking, or she was asking, what comics should I get graded? And I said, and this is the best advice I can give anybody, is if grading a comic makes you happy, then you should grade it no matter what. The problem is that people sometimes grade stuff for the wrong reasons. Because they ask me to explain, why do people get things graded? There's plenty of reasons. Some people, and I'll kind of talk about how I responded. I said some people will grade a book because they want to protect it. Some people will grade them because they want to sell them for a higher price. Some people will grade them because maybe it has a personal nostalgia to them, and they just want it slabbed so they can proudly display it on the wall. There are many reasons. Some people just say, you know what, I really love this cover. It's a work of art. I think I'm going to get it slabbed, so again, I could proudly display it. There's lots of different reasons. And to me, what's one of the biggest turnoffs, I love watching unboxing videos when it comes to CGC, PGX, CBCS, especially if a person doesn't know a grade. So if you want me to watch one of your videos, the absolute one I will watch every time, with the exception I'm about to say, is when somebody is showing an unboxing of graded comics. I love the fact, especially if they don't know, I love seeing the reaction of somebody getting a grade. Now this is what will make me turn off that video instantly, is the type of collector who claims to love comics, who will want every grade of their comic to be a 9.8, and if they get a 9.6, you'd think someone in their family just died. Now, to me, that is not love of comics, that's a love of profit. Because what's the difference between a 9.8 and a 9.6? The only difference is how much you can sell it for. So me, I will instantly turn off a video that has somebody that is so concerned completely about profitability. Whether they say it or not, that's the only reason somebody would be upset. So when it comes to comic collecting, if you've made a mistake, congratulations. It happens. It's part of life. The only way it becomes bad, if you sit there crying or angry or not dealing with it and not learning from the mistake, you will keep repeating it. And it will probably get worse. And what will happen? You'll beat yourself up even more. You'll get angry even more. And that's why, like, when I talk about, like, my haters and everything, the stalkers, the 5 or 6 that come to my channel and thumb it down, those are prime examples of people who, somewhere in their life, I don't even have to know them to know the situation, because it's an easy read, because successful, happy people don't go around spreading hate. It's people that have something in their life that they refuse to deal with. It makes them angry and bitter or depressed or whatever, and instead of learning from their lesson and moving on, they decide to have their hatred spread outward, thinking that will make them better. And yet these are the same people who were angry at me in 2015 who still are angry at me in 2018. So they hold on to their depression or anger or frustration or just plain negativity and don't learn from it, and it continues. And if you watched me from either my other channel, which has nothing to do with comics, or my original channel, you'll see I've changed as a person. You have to think of it like planting a seed. If that seed never turns into a tree, it remains a seed its whole life. It doesn't create its goal. But a seed, when properly watered, properly fed, got plenty of sunlight, will grow into a tree. It doesn't happen overnight. So this advice I'm giving is not going to be for everybody, but for those who can listen and see that bad things that happen to you, if you look at them as bad, that's exactly what they're going to be. But if you see them as tools to improve your life, your collections will get better, your life will get better. Now, that doesn't mean everything's going to be sunshine and roses, but it's the difference between a person that will be angry for 20 years of their life and look back with regret that they never changed it, and somebody that might be bad, in a bad mood for a day. Like, that's why when I made that video the other day, I was in a really bad mood. I had like 5 or 6 bad things happen to me, and it kept piling on throughout the day. Like they say, when it rains, it pours. And I wasn't afraid to make a video because I wanted to show people, sometimes bad things can happen that can be out of your control. But you notice the video the next day, I wasn't mad anymore. You could see today, I'm not mad anymore. I learned from it. I learned, okay, what can I do to avoid those situations and improved my life? Or at the very least, kept myself from feeling that way. So if you collect a comic and you mess up by overpaying, or you didn't bid high enough as you'd like to because you were trying to undercut somebody, and you regret what you did, well, learn from it and never do it again. Like, there was an old, joke back in the, 30s where they were doing these skits, and I don't remember what character. They go to a doctor, and it says, it hurts when I touch my arm. And the doctor says, well, don't touch your arm. Life could be complicated if you want it to be. Life can be depressing if you want it to be. And people are told all their life it's never your fault. Instead of the truth that everything that you do will affect your choices in life and the choices of the people around you. You could be in the worst mood, and you're walking down the street, and you bump into somebody, and because of your bad mood, you flip that person off, or maybe you punch them in the face or scream at them, thinking, oh, I feel better now, because I, as an angry person, vented my frustration and hurt someone else. And you might feel better, and you think your life is great. Well, what if that person you punched or yelled at or insulted was a doctor, and they were, because their car broke down, they had to walk to work, and they do operations for their life. So now they had the car broke down, they couldn't get a taxi in time, they have this person that bumps into them and yells at them and punches them or makes them feel horrible, which puts them in a bad mood, and they now have to operate on somebody with all that stuff in their mind, and the person ends up ultimately dying because they didn't focus. Now, the person that caused that whole butterfly effect may never even see that, realize that, or even care that what they did to that other person, which may seem like no big deal to them, could alter somebody else's life in traumatic ways. It's called responsibility. So like I said, this is not a typical video I would do on this channel, and I will not do this very often, but I think this could really help, especially the younger generation, because some people, like they say, that whole thing about you can't teach old dogs new tricks is full of garbage. If you want to learn something, it just depends on how motivated you are. And I think that was one of the reasons why some people don't like me, is I influence the comic book community. And I would like to think in a positive way. But I wasn't always that way. I had to learn from my mistakes. That's why I had so many people hating me in my original channel. Yeah, I got like 4 or 5, maybe 6 people that, troll my channel. But it's nothing compared to the 60 and 70 I used to get, because I always felt like I had to defend myself. Well, you notice I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't call people out. I learned from my mistake. It's okay to make mistakes. What's not okay is not learning from them, because you're waiting for somebody else to come along to help you, because the world tells you it's never your fault. Well, everything you do is your fault, good and bad, so own up to it and learn from it so you don't have to do it again. So if you have a bad situation and it teaches you, because you paid attention to it, to do something that makes your life better. Let's say you have to get into a car accident and break both your legs and be in the hospital for 6 months. But in that time period, on the 6th month before you go home, a new nurse works there. Male or female, I'll leave it up to you depending on what your preference is. I don't want to assume everybody here is a man, and I also don't want to assume everybody is going to be attracted to women. But let's say after, right about a day or two before you're about to go home, a new nurse comes, and nurses can be male or female, so again, I'll leave it up to you, and that person ends up being the love of your life. You marry and spend the rest of your lives happily ever after. And the only way you would have met that person was to be in that car accident. How many of you would, if you had a crystal ball and somebody now says to you, okay, you're about to, let's say you pray or wish or hope or think about the fact that, you know what, I want to meet the man or woman of my dream. And all of a sudden a genie appears and says, okay, wish granted. But to get, and you'll have a choice, but to get the person of your dreams, you will actually have to get into a car accident. Your legs will be broken. You will be in pain. You will suffer for a short while. And in the 6th month, you will meet the person of your dreams. Would you allow yourself, if you had the choice, to get into that accident? Think about that. If you have the choice, well, you can have the accident and be in a lot of pain for a little while, and it will cause you a path that makes you meet the person of your dreams. And you can avoid the accident, avoiding that temporary pain, and end up never meeting that person ever. So let's say you decide, you know what? I want to meet the person of my dreams. So I am willing to get into that accident, even though it will cause me a small amount of pain for a little bit of while. I think it's worth it. So now think about it then. If that accident was the reason why you were in a place to find the person that you could spend the rest of your life with, is it a bad thing? Now just imagine if somebody gave you that crystal ball and said, in 1 week, you're about to get into a car accident, and doesn't tell you any other event after that. And Jim says, depending on how hot the nurse is. Let's say it's the most beautiful nurse you've ever met in your life. The person is everything that you want. It is your soulmate. Let's just assume that's the case. And the only way to meet that individual was to get into that car accident. Would you still get into that car accident knowing that it would lead you to something that would be the best thing that ever happened to you? Now, of course, you'll have to go through some pain. But is it worth it? And if it is, then is that car accident that you went through bad? Because like they said, you'll be in pain for 6 months. Then after that, you're done. And now you spend the rest of your life with the best thing in your life ever. Is it worth it? For me, it would be. But like I said, let's do another scenario. Let's say a genie pops up for whatever reason, or a fortune teller, or whatever, and they just only tell you part of the situation. And they say to you, next week, you're going to get into a car accident if you get into this car. And they don't explain what happens after. And they say to you, you can avoid that by not getting in the car. Now, how many people, because they only think about the moment and they only think about the negative, how many people would say, I don't want to get into that car accident? And they never have it. And they think, wow, that's great. I didn't get into that car accident. I just avoided 6 months of pain in the hospital and 2 broken legs. That's so lucky. But now they'll never meet the person of their dreams, and they didn't know about it, because people always focus on the moment instead of focusing on the consequences of your actions. And sometimes it's the lack of action, because there's a consequence. You know, the road less traveled. So when it comes to collecting, I see people all the time, they get upset when, they don't get the highest grade possible, or they get upset that they missed a book that will probably be on eBay 600 times more in the next month, or they overpaid for a book. Well, if you don't learn from your mistake and grow from it, it will continue to happen forever. And if you apply this to your life, it doesn't mean that mistakes won't happen. It doesn't mean you're not going to be angry or depressed or make mistakes. And Alex Comics Order says, where are you getting these scenarios? I just have that kind of brain. I've always been that way. I could just think of hypothetical situations on the spot. That's why you see when I do my live shows, once I start talking, I hardly ever make too many mistakes, and I never plan. Every single video I do, I never plan. I just have a thought in my head about a topic, and then I just go. So I guess either I'm a lot smarter than I give myself credit for, or somebody is downloading information into my brain, and I'm just spewing out the information. So I never think of scenarios. They just come to my head. I've always had that gift. And thank you for that, Alex. But the one thing, and that's why people love my other channel, and I don't promote it here because it has nothing to do with comics, but I do, especially recently, I do a lot of videos like this, and that's where some of my haters come from, because some people will spend their lives being bitter and angry, and they will stay that way. I'm sure you know someone in your life that 10 years ago is just as bitter and angry as they are now. And that's because they had some situation that made them that way. No one is born angry. When was the last time you saw an angry baby that wanted to do nothing but punch everything around it? Something has to happen to put somebody in that. And when you don't face it, when you don't confront it, when you don't deal with it, when you don't alter it, or you don't learn from it, it continues to repeat. And you will make the same mistake all of your life. And that is why some people who learn from their mistakes grow. Like I said, if somebody fails 5th grade, you have to repeat it. If you repeat it and you say, well, you know what? I've already done this. This will be a breeze. I don't have to study. I'll just go with the flow. If you fail again, guess what? You have to take 5th grade again. And after a while of repeating the thing over and over again, it gets frustrating. It gets annoying. Some people will just quit. Some people will get angry or depressed and say, woe is me, instead of saying, you know what, maybe I should get off my behind, start learning the lesson so I can go to the next level. Niles Effort says, trolls don't have sex. Well, I'm sure they do. If they have money, they can pay for it. And there's a difference between sex and lovemaking. Animals can have sex. To have an emotional connection with something or someone, that's rare. And that's hard, because that takes effort. Because you can't have love if you're angry inside. Even if you try and convince the world you're an amazing, confident, happy person. There's a huge difference between what your head says and what your heart feels. And if your head and your heart contradict each other, well, you're just lying to yourself, and you'll never change. And you will continually make the same mistakes over and over again. So, like I said, this is not my typical comic book video. But I am impressed with the quality of subscribers I have. The kindness in the responses. The pleasant surprise I get from making videos like this and knowing that there will be positive comments of people who appreciated it. People who said that it might have helped them in some way. That means a lot to me. I'm one of those people, for whatever reason, my goal in life is to help other people. And sometimes when you help other people, you sacrifice your own happiness. That's just, there's give and take and there's a cost for everything. And for me, it's worth it. And that's why I think I had to put up with a lot of abuse along the way, because when you are caring, sometimes you make mistakes. I mean, you could literally be giving CPR to somebody and do something wrong, and that person can die. It's the whole drowning in good intention. But it doesn't mean that person wasn't trying to do good, because you cannot control an outcome. And I think that was the biggest thing I needed to learn. And my first go-around on this channel before I shut it down is I felt like I always had to defend myself from people that were basically flat-out lying about me. People that still do it to this day. But what I realized is those people that were abusing me in 2015 and 2016 are still the same exact people that they are now in 2018. I have grown since then. So who's the worse off? That's for you to decide. But as long as I know, that's all that matters. And this is what I want. Really quick, somebody has a question. Chan Army says, Chris, I have a question. I recently got a Spawn #1 at a fine condition, but the book has no staples. Would you consider a book with no staples a fine condition? Absolutely not. And I would return that book. I think with no staples at all, that would be, I would say that's probably a 2.0 at best. And Michael Straylet says, it's called karma. What goes around comes around. Absolutely. You are responsible for not only what you do and what you say, but sometimes what you don't do and what you don't say. Just imagine if you were one of those people. Let's say somebody's being mugged. There are some people who will look the other way. There are some people who will take out their camera and make a video so they can have a wonderful trending video on YouTube because they're desperate for views. And then there's somebody that might call the cops and think, well, I did my part. And then there's that person who will actually dive in and stop it. So let's say there's a 35-year-old man robbing a 90-year-old lady. How many people will continue to walk by and allow it to happen? Well, your inaction is allowing that to continue. So, even though you'd say, well, I didn't do anything, my hands are clean, I washed my hands and I walked away, you didn't do anything to stop them. And I'll give you a prime example of something, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I'm just giving an example of a situation. When I was about 16 years old, I was working at McDonald's, and I was in the back, doing the flipping of the burgers and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, in the dining room, there was this loud noise, and it ends up there was a fight, and it ended up that there was this probably 25-year-old man who was grabbing what looked to be a 75-year-old man, like frail, skinny man, and this other guy was like a bodybuilder, and he's throwing him and pushing him on top of a table. So the younger man who's bullying this older man who was a little senile. He came in all the time. He would buy one coffee and refill it all day. He wasn't all there, and he would talk to people randomly, but his mind wasn't really there, so we knew him as, that's just him being him. This guy, for some reason, got offended to the point where he grabbed this 75-year-old man, grabbed him by the shirt, pushes him onto a table, and everybody in the place, in the restaurant, whether they were working or they were around them, all backed away, standing there, stunned at what they were seeing. Now, some people are saying, oh, you can't do that. Some people are saying, stop it. But no one was doing anything. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm 47 years old. This is something that happened to me when I was 16. I was in the back by the grill, and I saw that no one was doing anything, and it made me angry. And I went from the back of the McDonald's all the way into the dining room, went behind the person and put him in a full Nelson, and held him that way until the cops came. I found out later that that person had a knife in their hand, and I didn't know it. But because I felt like I had to do something, because that guy would have killed that old man, it ended up later on, we found out from the cops that this guy that was attacking this old man was a wanted criminal. He had a knife in his hand. Luckily, I didn't see it. But everybody else stood there and did nothing. If I would have done the same thing, which would have been easy to do, saying, I have no part of this, I'll just look the other way, we could have witnessed a murder. And that's the thing that some people in life never think about. They don't think about what they do and say and how it affects other people's lives, even in ways you may never know about. Because I'll tell you something. Some of the mean lies that some people have said about me almost destroyed me. Accusing me of things that I've never done, and people believing it and making fun of me. I am human. But the best part is I learned from it, and now they can say whatever they want. If it makes them feel better, I actually feel sorry for them because they're still going to be the same bitter and angry people they are since they were in 2015 and whenever, and will continue to be so. And that's their choice, because again, they didn't learn from their mistakes or problems that at some point caused them to be angry. Because, like I said way earlier, somebody that's successful, and success to me isn't how much money you have in your pocket. To me, success is being loved, being liked, doing something good in the world. That to me is success, not having a large bank account, because anybody can do that. A criminal can have lots of money, doesn't make them a good person or successful. A murderer who gets contracts can make lots of money murdering people and can become very wealthy from it. Look at politicians throughout history where they'll sacrifice the people for their own personal profit. Jim's comic said, so what would have happened and you were stabbed and died? Then you would have had a bad decision. Well, to me, honestly, if I would have been stabbed and died, well, obviously I can't do anything if I'm dead, but if I had a spirit afterwards who could relive that, I wouldn't change a thing. Because if my action caused the life to be saved and I had to sacrifice myself to do it, I would do it over again. To me, I can't be one of those people that would stand there and do nothing. Like, I'm one of those people, and I do this to this day. When I drive home from work, there are sometimes at one of the traffic lights, the main traffic light that goes from the highway to the regular roads, the smaller roads, there's sometimes homeless people there. And people all the time go into the other lane and try and avoid them. And anytime I have money, I stop and I hand it to them. There was another time where I saw a homeless person, and for some reason I felt really bad for this person. I don't know why, but I just felt really bad. And I actually went to the deli. I bought 2 $5 scratch-off tickets, a bottle of Yoo-Hoo, and a sandwich, and I drove back and handed it to them. Now, they could be into drugs. I don't know. It's not my job to say you have to live your life a certain way. Who am I to judge? But if I can do something good, I think to me, if that fills a void in my life, it's worth doing. It's one of the reasons why I have 3 stray cats. All 3 cats were strays from kittens, except for the last one, Luna. She was about 7 or 8 years old when she literally walked into our house. And it would have been easy to turn away. So my thing is, when it comes to choices in your life, sometimes you'll never know what you did or said to somebody, how it can affect them, how it can change their life, how they could put them on a path of depression or suicide. Or maybe you can turn around and help inspire people and they become the person who cures cancer, the person who creates the first real electric car, or something amazing. Your advice could have turned somebody from bitter, angry, and depressed into somebody hopeful and creative. Most people don't want to do that because it takes what? Effort. It takes responsibility. It takes true strength. The easy road, like they say, if you ever watch Star Trek, one of the best quotes I will remember from Spock, I think it was Star Trek 2, where they say, it's easier to destroy than to create. It doesn't take a genius to take a building and destroy it. It just takes maybe even a hammer and chisel. Like a painting. Very easy to take a match and light it up and burn it. And you might feel, that's great, I just destroyed it. That's so funny, that's so cool. But what about the person that drew that? That had to buy all the material, that had to plan the image, who had to maybe practice for years to get good enough to make that painting, who for days, weeks, months, or even years took all of the effort to make something beautiful. That's talent. Not somebody who takes a hammer to it or a match to it. And that's why most people spend their lives being miserable and unhappy, because they're just willing to get by with just enough effort to do something bare minimum. And that even goes with comic collecting. Some people are just very happy with, oh, I'll never get that book. Well, you'll never do anything to try and get it. You've already defeated yourself. Sometimes you have to go with, well, this is a book I want. It seems like a challenge. I like challenges. I'm going to do my best to try and get it. If I don't, hey, I did my best. But at least I tried. Instead of the alternate is, oh, that book, I could never get it, so why bother? Well, be careful what you wish for, you might get it. I said, Retrotech sounds like the plot to Die, Die, Die. Well, the only difference is I'm not murdering anybody. But, that's the end of this video. This is long enough. It's about 40 minutes long. This is not your typical video. This is a video that if you haven't seen it from the beginning, you may want to watch it a couple of times. Maybe something might help you. And if all of a sudden you could see it's okay to make a mistake, but if you don't learn from it, don't be surprised that the same thing keeps happening. And you realize, because like I say on my other channel, you need real eyes to realize that if you actually take the time to learn why you made the mistake and what you did to create that mistake, and you learn to never do it again, you will never see bad things as bad ever again. You will see them as learning tools. Because nothing gets the point across like pain. Because you don't forget pain. And I guarantee you, let's say on your 3rd birthday, you probably had the best birthday of your life, had ice cream cake and had all your little friends, and you got great presents. I promise you, you probably don't remember a thing. But I guarantee you, the week before, if you fell down the stairs and ended up in the hospital because you broke your leg, I guarantee you, you will never forget that. Pain is a learning tool for the smart. For the rest, they get angry, depressed, and wonder, never realize why they keep having the same situations happen over and over again. It's all choice, it's all responsibility. So this will help you with comic collecting. It will help you in every part of your life. Or you could be one of those few people that says, oh, it's just Chris saying his stupid rants, and he's an idiot, and I don't like him, and everything he does is wrong. I'm not going to listen. Well, who's that going to hurt? Me or them? Again, always choice. So thank you so much for everybody listening. Again, you guys are all amazing. Just read the comments, because as you see with videos now, they post the live chat as it's going. I want you to take the time and read the comments and see the positive things that people are saying. And that's what happens. You know, you give out off a positive energy, it comes back mostly positive. Every now and then you're going to have a bad apple, but it ain't going to spoil my tree. Because I know what it's like to have that tree be destroyed by those few bad apples. Lesson learned. So, thank you for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you think this has helped you in any way, or you just want to show support. Don't keep supporting negative people, because, like I said, even if you don't do what that person does and you just sit back and laugh because you think it's funny, it's called enabling, and it's being part of the problem. Don't be one of those people. You are who you associate with, so strive for the best. Otherwise, don't be surprised that the worst always surrounds you. Thank you so much. Love to all of you. Happy collecting. Collect because you like it and it makes you happy, not because it could make you wealthy someday, because you're going to be very disappointed when you look back. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next video. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody.